Hey guys, it's Kels back at it again with another video, another Friday Night Live. I promised you that each and every Friday night I would go live and show my face. So here I go, here I go, here I go, back at it again as promised. First things first, we did things a little bit differently tonight. We did not drop a topic option to vote last night. Instead, I just let you guys know what was on my heart, what we was going to talk about tonight. And you can see that's already in the subject line of tonight live. It is the repercussions of feminine power. We're going to get into what we mean by repercussions. We're going to get into what we mean by feminine power, and we're going to get into it from the masculine feminine perspective. All of that we're getting into tonight. But second thing second, you know the deal. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Let me know what you are sipping on and where you are watching from. If you're catching us live, and if you're part of the replay gang, drop that in the chat as well. So tonight, and I want to make sure that you're hearing me and seeing me well. Let me check my feeds. Yes, it's looking like you can see me and you can hear me well. Let me just make sure. Yes, it's looking like you guys know I have my monitor right here. So let me just make sure that you are seeing me and hearing me well. And it's looking like you are. So perfect. Okay. So I am sipping on H2O. The dog, it's been a streak of H2O, rather uncanny. But during these lives, I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like drinking some water, keeping that throat chakra lubricated, staying hydrated, staying fresh, being able to, just engage the community, engage the collective, and make sure that I'm translating, make sure that I'm channeling what I'm getting clearly enough so that we're like, we're not miscommunicating what needs to be said on our lives. Yeah. So H2O for the doll. Take a sip. Spitting on myself. And we're going to cheers. What are we cheersing today? We're cheersing to thriving. We're cheersing to standing in our own power. We're cheersing to being the queen and the king of our own inner monarchy. We are cheersing to ascension. We are cheersing to all of those good things. We are cheersing to attractiveness, a standing in our certainty, standing in our power. And yeah, that's what we're cheersing to tonight. Cheers. Clink, 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 clink. Yes. So it's looking like the feed is coming in good. And yes, so you see the title of tonight's live. Before we get into that, how are you guys feeling? How has this week been for you? This week has been a productive week for me. I feel like it's felt good. I've been a little bit distracted. I have been a little bit distracted by all the pomp and circumstance happening over in the UK as a result of the Queen's death. And I have been paying attention because you guys know that London in the UK has a special place in my heart. That's where I did my biggest travel transformation at. That's where I went to go study for probably about a year and a half, maybe a little bit later, give or take. Love the people, love the city, love the country. Really kind of changed my life. So I'm very, very partial to the ceremony, the order, the pomp and circumstance of how their culture shifts their monarchy. And so I just kind of been watching that in the background as I'm just keeping myself productive and keeping myself busy. And so other than a little bit of distraction from that, I felt like this week has been pretty good. Now we are in the thick of Mercury retrograde. And if y'all know anything about, how these planets work or anything like that, Mercury retrograde is a time when technology usually plays up. It's a time when little things usually happen because it's calling you to slow down and reevaluate, nostalgic experiences or things that you should have learned over, the last few months or the last year or so. And so there have been a little bit of technology things playing up, but nothing too major. I don't like to call in any of that, any of that bad, chaotic energy or anything like that. But on top of Mercury being retrograde, there's like, I want to say like 5 or 6 other planets, major planets that are retrograde right now as well. So we're definitely going to be feeling that, that kind of like wonky, chaotic energy. And to tell you the truth, as a triple water sign, it don't even bother me that much because I am very used to that kind of ethereal, nebulous experience, and I'm quite comfortable in there. You know what I mean? In the deep, deep kind of emotions and kind of the like uh, romantic, kind of mysterious, kind of mythological space as well. So to me, when the energy gets all weird and wonky, I'm all right. I mean, I observe it and I'm like in it, but it doesn't frighten me like I would suspect it probably would frighten like an air sign or like some earth sign or something like that. Some people that are very grounded and very like intellectual and cannot take any disorder or anything like that, or when things are not underneath their control. I feel like those types of people are usually very thrown off by when the energy gets a bit chaotic, you know, and rumbly as it is right now. But those of us who are used to kind of some flowy, nebulous, ethereal energy, you know, the water signs, any of the mutable signs, I feel like fire signs are okay with it as well because they can have a tendency to be very passionate, and so usually passion is kind of nebulous as well sometimes, or not as curated as air and earth is. I feel like if you're a fire sign, or if you're like me, water sign, you might be okay in this energy and quite uh, easy to land back on your feet. Whereas some other people might have a harder time with it. But as I say, I feel like this time is just calling for us to slow down and be a little bit, cross your T's and dot your I's, and being a little bit more meticulous about what you're doing and thoughtful and present in what you're doing, so that the devil and the details don't come extra deviling during this retrograde period. So, yeah, you guys know I'm into, you know, astrology and things like that, and energy and things like that. So I figured we could talk about that a little bit at the top of the broadcast. But as you can see, the subject line is the repercussions of feminine power. The repercussions of feminine power. So we're going to get into what we're talking about, what we mean by that. And hopefully you guys are able to chime in, let me know your thoughts as well. And continue for us to learn from the collective wisdom of the It's Kells community, and make it do what it do. Yeah. Yes. Cheers. Clink, clink, clink. Mm-hmm. All right. So let me fix myself. I feel like I kind of want to sit up a little bit more. There we go. So I do have some notes. Because I kind of been thinking about this topic. Let me give you the background on the topic. Let me just give you the background on topic. So right now, normally we would do our topic rundown and our topic reveal, but because we didn't do our voting last night, we're just going to jump right into the topic. I'm going to give you the topic little bitty rundown, basically where I was at when I thought about this topic and why I wanted to talk about it. So the topic, as you can see in the subject line, the repercussions of feminine power. I was really this week I was really working on stepping into my own power, and being comfortable and confident in that space. And the reason why that came up for me was because I firmly believe that this transition of the queen and the symbolatry, the symbolism of it, really was showing a changing of the guard, from this external perspective of everything that we do in our life to a more internal perspective of how we govern our lives, how we govern our own inner monarchy, how we govern our own kingdom, which is everything within, you know, our field, you know what I mean? Our family, our life, our career, our friends, our bodies, our homes, our cars, our hobbies, our loves, our pets, everything that's within your field, within your kingdom, within your sphere of influence. You can consider your own monarchy. And so when you see the queen, this Western, she's, everything about her is Western symbol of this external governance, pass away after a 70-year reign. To me, it was only I want to say logical, but maybe it's more intuitive. But to me, it was very evident. I'll use that word. It was very evident that this was asking for us to reevaluate who was the authority or the ruler in our own lives under our own dominion, you know. And so I was thinking about, what did I admire? What do I admire about how the queen governed her reign? And I really liked, and news and everything talked a lot about how, you know, she got to be queen by the time she was 25. Her dad died when she was 50, when he was 56 or something like that. So she was in Kenya at the time. By the time she turned around and came back from Kenya, she had to come back because her dad died. And then she took over the throne, and she had no formal grooming. And the way that she just embodied, however many years it took her, because by the time she came into my awareness, she was already a grandmother by this time. You know what I mean? And so, um, so by the time we saw her, by the time I knew like what was going on and who she was well into her embodiment of this queen energy. But a lot of the autobiographical reference about her talk about how she just fully embodied that essence, that force of nature, of queendom, that queen archetype fully, even when she was in her youth. You know what I mean? And they always show this particular reference of her saying, whether I have a long or a short life, it will be dedicated to the service of the imperial family, you know, through which we all belong. And that was like England and all their little colonies or whatever. So I really just admired how she embodied her destiny, or embodied her royal birthright. You know what I mean? And so I started to think about, just how do I embody my own personal power? How do I step into my days? How do I govern what's underneath my dominion? You know what I mean? In a more certain and aligned way. So that's kind of how I got to this topic. Now, when I was evaluating that, I recognized that, oh, I'm having some little doubts or little fears about that. Why? What are those doubts and fears about running my own domain, my own domain, and running my own dominion? What are those little doubts and those fears that I feel? And I recognize that, oh, there feels like there's some repercussions of women fully stepping into their power. And so I started to say, okay, let me start to write down and identify what I feel some of those repercussions are. And that way, that's my first step, is, all right, let me identify where I'm feeling some little issues, or feeling some resistance, or feeling my nervous system kick up a little bit. Let me identify where that is, and maybe I can see why that is. And let me work on paring that down and stripping that back so that I can fully step into my power, confidently aligned, certain, you know what I mean? Having worked through all the little doubts and judgments and fears that seem to have percolated up when I started to talk about stepping into my own power, stepping into my own power. And so that's kind of the background on this topic for tonight, and how it came about through my own inner work that I do, that I've been doing this week, as I kind of watch these global events play out and identify how they're actually playing out in my own personal life. Because I'm a firm believer in that once you see it playing out on the global stage, that the macrocosm, there is a piece of it that is playing out in your own life, the microcosm. And so to be able to see the symbolism on the big stage and recognize it in your own life, I feel like is a good skill of mine. I feel like I've had a girlfriend tell me like, oh my God, you're able to connect the dots and see patterns and things like that. And on one part, it's a natural skill. Like, that's just how I am. That's just how I've been born. And on the other part, I've seen how being able to do that felt really good has felt really good in my life, and like made me like feel like, ooh, I did that. You know what I mean? And so I practice it now. I practice it now with a bit more consciousness about it. Yeah. Yeah. So first things first, let's talk about what we mean by repercussions. So you see the title, The Repercussions of Feminine Power. What do we mean by repercussions? Big word. Okay, I just write the titles as they come into my head. Sometimes I'll be like, dang, why all these SAT words? But that's just how it popped in. So I just put that in the title. And then, if I want to change it later, make it a little bit more uh, sixth grade, then I'll do that. But for now, it was repercussions that popped into my head. And so hence the title. By repercussions, I mean what do we mean by repercussions? By repercussions, we mean the consequences. The consequences. And as you can see, it always has like a little bit of a negative connotation. You know what I mean? Repercussions, consequences, it's a little bit of a negative connotation, a little bit of a negative feeling to it, right? That's what we mean by repercussions, the consequences, the results of what happens as a result of, the outcome, seeing 555 on the clock. You know what I mean? And so that's what I mean by repercussions. What do we mean by feminine power? So this is up for debate, but I'm going to talk about it in two senses, and I'm not going to separate the senses, but I want you to know that it's two senses that I feel are the most present when I say feminine power. The first one is sexual power. It's attractiveness power. It's seductive power. You know what I mean? And so usually when you say feminine power, people are thinking that you're talking about a Marilyn Monroe type seduction, or a Dita Von Teese, whatever her name is, type of seduction, this seductive quality to you, this attractive ability, this siren type energy to it. And that is a part of feminine power that people are very afraid of. But the other part of feminine power that I'm considering is what we would just call regular power: alignment, certainty, clarity, fecundity, ability to produce, clarity, passion, um, uh, those types of things. All of those things have to do with power as well. And it's usually a little bit slightly more masculine, but still women definitely, occupy that space. So when I say feminine power, I'm talking about both the seductive, siren, sensual, attractive part of feminine power, and also the clarity, the process, the strength, the tenacity, the aligned version of feminine power as well. So thinking about those commingled tonight and not separating out, you know what I mean? But definitely wanted to make that distinction clear so that, we can see how the multidimensionalness of feminine power we're talking about tonight. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. So, let me move over. There we go. There you go. So we've talked about the meaning of repercussions. We talked about the meaning of feminine power. Now let's talk about, what are the repercussions of feminine power from a male perspective, and what are the repercussions of feminine power from the female, on the female perspective. And when I say that, we're not talking about healthy male and healthy female. We're not talking about healthy male and healthy female. We are talking about unhealthy masculine perspective and unhealthy feminine perspective. Because when we're talking about healthy, these things don't really apply. Because when you're healthy, what we're talking about is usually a non-issue. Yeah, it's usually a non-issue. So on the female side, so when you have, a woman that is in her feminine power, that is in her assuredness, that is in her attractiveness, that is in her clarity and her confidence and her leadership, a lot of times from her feminine or from her female colleagues or counterparts or mother or sisters or cousins or friends, you typically, from the unhealthy perspective, you typically get the who does she think she is? The who does she think she is? Right? And so sometimes this is very evident from your feminine, counterparts. And sometimes it's just in your mind because you've seen it like perpetrated against other women who are in their power. But nonetheless, it is definitely a who does she think she is? When you're in your power, when you're secure, when you're certain, when you're certain in your abilities, when you're clear, when you're aligned, when you step into the room and everybody got to sit up straight, it's usually the who does she think she is? Who does she think she is? Or the fear of it. Or the fear of it. And I feel like this comes from this way that women are groomed to be this kind of people pleaser, this kind of shrinking yourself, this kind of shrink yourself so she or he doesn't feel uncomfortable around you, so that your greatness doesn't feel like an indictment on them, so that you don't make them feel bad for you being comfortable and confident in your greatness. I remember one time I had a Middle Eastern friend loose term, friend in London try to tell me, you should be humble. You should be humble. On the surface, that might seem like, I get it. No, it was a who does she think she is? That was coded language for who does she think she is? And my response to her was, being humble didn't get me where I'm at. Being humble did not get me over here. If I was to be humble, I would be at the bottom. If I was to be humble, how you guys think I looking like how I look with the skin color that I have, if I was to be humble, I would have been at the bottom of the barrel, according to y'all. So it's a no for that. It's confidence over here. It's standing in my power, my beauty, and my intellect over here. You know what I mean? And so that who does she think she is play is very huge when you as a woman are in your feminine power, or in your power, and other women around you are used to being able to try to chip away at that power that you possess, or that your power makes them feel uncomfortable. A lot of times it's conditioning. It's just what the collective is conditioned to do. Woman in her power, who does she think she is? She should be taken down a few notches, and that type of thing. And that's very unhealthy behavior that you usually get from your feminine counterparts, right? The people pleasing, the self-sacrifice. Two other things that they groom women a lot to be, that seem to be like deeply rooted in this conditioning that they give to women. You should be self-sacrificial. If you are not sacrificing for somebody else, if you are not slitting your wrist and pouring out and laying on the train tracks for somebody else or some other purpose, then you are not a woman, and you're not worthy, and you're not, respectable, right? This kind of brainwashing that they give women a lot. So you'll have that own guilt as well. You might even perpetrate it against yourself. You might be in your power, doing what you need to do, creating what you want to create, going where you want to go, living the life that you want to live, and secretly have this this old niggling devil on your shoulder telling you that you should be, you need to call that person, and you need to check on that person, and you need to go help with that, and you should help with this, and maybe you shouldn't, and they didn't call you, so maybe I should go offer them some help, and maybe I should do that thing that I really don't want to do. And it's a lot of that self-sacrificial, people-pleasing energy. So on one end, from the feminine side, it's the who does she think she is? She need to be more humble. She need to be taken down a few notches. And then on the other side is the I'm not anyone if I am not self-sacrificing and people-pleasing. And yes, would you like, I can do it, I'll do it, I can do it. It's a lot. It's a lot of unhealthy behavior. It's a lot. You know what I mean? And so that is definitely some of the repercussions that I see when you step into your feminine power from the female side, the unhealthy feminine perspective. You know what I mean? Actively asking you to shrink yourself. We see this before I do that. Let me take a little sip. We also see this asking you to shrink yourself. So not only the who does she think she is, the people pleasing and the self-sacrifice, and I'm a martyr. I'm the mother and I'm the martyr. I'm the sister and I'm the martyr. I'm the bestie and I'm the martyr. You know what I mean? If I'm not, pouring out my last bit of energy and money and love and attention to other people, then I'm not worthy to be a woman. And I'm obviously dramatizing, but let me tell you, this is how they be making it feel. I'm dramatizing to make a point. But if you really sat down and really felt into it and really thought about it and really thought about why you might be holding yourself back, why you might not be stepping fully into your feminine power, into your power period, it might be that fear or the repercussions of who does she think she is? She ain't self-sacrificial enough. She ain't people-pleasing enough. And that feeling of being excluded from the community for not falling into those roles or playing into those constructs that actually are asking you to shrink yourself from your true power, your true certainty, clarity, and alignment, and asking you to shrink yourself into this place in society that is really a servant and a peasant girl, to fit in, to be a part of the family, to be a part of the clique. Yeah. That shrinking yourself. I have personally been asked to shrink myself. And the person who would tell you that, they would never, if you ask them, are you asking me to shrink myself? They would say, no, why would you say that? Why would you say, of course not. Of course not. And that's exactly what they're doing. And they may or may not even realize it. Intentionally or unintentionally, they be asking you to shrink yourself and then don't even know that's what they're asking you to do. They're thinking they're doing you a favor. They're thinking they're giving you sound advice. They're thinking they're helping you, be better, when really they're assuaging their own fears, their own judgments, their own doubts, by trying to get you to behave in a way that they feel is a safe way to behave. They are asking you to shrink yourself. A very real repercussion of being a feminine in her power. Very real repercussion of it. Being asked to shrink yourself. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe why are you doing that? Oh my God, don't do that. Oh, don't wear your hair like that. Don't put your hot eyes like that. Don't wear your makeup like that. Don't why do you questioning everything? Questioning everything. Questioning everything. Lots of neediness. So that you then have to defend yourself. You then have to justify what you're doing. You're then having to explain. You're then having to try to coach them back into their own alignment to get them to understand what you're doing before you fully even know what you're doing. They're throwing a wrench in the whole operation as you're trying to work out exactly what you're doing, as you're trying to work out your exact power, your exact alignment, your exact certainty, as you're on the journey in it, building it. You know what I mean? That shrinking yourself many times comes from that unhealthy feminine influence, as a feminine in her power. But it also comes into play on the masculine side, on a man's side. What are the repercussions of a woman being in her power, of a feminine being in her power, as it relates to the unhealthy masculine? That same shrink yourself things. You're pricing yourself out of the market. I've been told that. You're pricing yourself out of the market. By getting your master's degree, you're pricing yourself out of the market. By traveling, you're pricing yourself out of the market. By being that elegant, you're pricing yourself out of the market. By being fit, you're pricing yourself out of the market. By having high standards, you're pricing yourself out of the market. All coded language for shrink yourself, shrink yourself, shrink yourself, shrink yourself. Anybody ever told you you're pricing yourself out of the market? What do we mean by pricing yourself out of the market? It means that you are pouring too much into yourself. You're putting yourself too high. You're putting yourself too high where the commoners can't reach you. You won't be married. You can't be married because the common man can't reach you where you're elevating yourself to. Pricing yourself out of the market. Somebody has maybe have never like said that to you, but you can kind of get that feeling. You could kind of get that feeling. You ever notice somebody dumbing themselves down? I talked about this a little bit when we watched because I'm a city girl. I'm a city girl. But when we watch Carisha Please, sometimes she gives us the fully present intellectual Carisha, and sometimes she gives us the ditzy. Majority of the time she gives us the ditzy. And I remember a friend of mine, side note, he lived in the hood, like the hood of Miami. Okay. And he used to tell me, and mind you, this time we're in college. Okay. So we're at the Creme de la Creme College in Florida. And he was able to, we both was able to get in. Right. And we were there. And he used to tell me that he used to take his books home from high school in pizza boxes. He had to hide his books, his AP, AP high, gifted advanced study books in pizza boxes just to be able to walk home, because the people, he would have gotten beaten up, right? So there's this collective expectation that you should dumb yourself down, that you should keep your level low, that you shouldn't be too far above the common or above anybody for fear of being a target. For fear of being a target. And so I'm glad I had this example, because it happens to men too. Yeah. Men can be asked to shrink themselves as well. And a lot of my viewers, I feel like more than 50% of my viewers on the Iskales Collective are men. So I definitely know men can relate to this, even though we're talking about feminine power tonight. I know our men in the collective can relate to this, because my friend told me he had to hide his books in pizza boxes, because the people, the community would have seen him as a threat, because of what he aspired to, because of what he was ascending to in his own life's journey, what was under his own dominion, what was under his own control. Have you ever experienced anything like that? Being asked to shrink yourself instead of being encouraged and empowered to step into your own personal power. What say y'all? Clink, clink, clink. So shrinking yourself, pricing yourself out of the market. That was, I gotta say, that was specifically hurtful. That was specifically hurtful, because I was in pursuit of something that my heart really desired. I really wanted to travel. I really wanted to go to London. It taken me a long time to get there, to identify what I really wanted. Not what other people said I should have had. Not what, not was written in somebody's book, or what somebody else did that I was trying to emulate. What I genuinely, truly wanted for myself. And so for me to finally make the decision to do that, and to gather up all my inner fortitude and all my inner strength to be able to step towards that in confidence without the support of anybody. Maybe it was the support of well wishes. That's support. So I take that back. With just the well wishes of a few select people. And to try to make that move, and for somebody to come to me and say, you're pricing yourself out of the market for doing what makes your heart skip a beat, for following your bliss. Imagine that could definitely rock you. That could really make you second guess yourself. And the thing about me is that I've always been a pretty strong person. But imagine if I was earlier in my journey where I wasn't as strong. That could have really knocked the wind out of me. Knock the wind out of my sails, cut me at my knees. That could have really buckled me. And I share that example because I know that it's probably come up in a lot of you guys' lives as well, where you're wanting to aspire to do something that is your true heart's calling. And the people closest to you, masculine or feminine, that should be supporting you are instead asking you to shrink yourself, encouraging you to not be so visible, to not be so powerful, telling you that you are pricing yourself out of the market. You're not going to be desirable. Imagine. But if you told them that that's what they were doing, they would say, oh, I didn't say that. I would never. That's not what I meant. That's not what I said. Repercussions of feminine power. Repercussions of power, period. Okay? Being asked to shrink. Being asked to shrink. People, instead of acknowledging, people are more interested in asking you to blend in and stay blended in with the common folks, or the, regular people, or, just average Joe, girl next door, guy next door. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But people are more encouraging you to be that or lower, versus people acknowledging and saying, you know what, there might be something a little special about you. You might be a little bit gifted. You should really nurture that. There are far less stories of that. That would be a healthy masculine or feminine response to someone who you see has a little bit of a power, has a little bit of a gift. That would be the healthy response to it. But far more often, and correct me if I'm wrong, and as I know you guys will, far more often, we have people that tell you, that pretend not to see your gift, pretend that you're not gifted, pretend not to see your light, would rather you shrink, would rather judge you, would rather be fearful of your light. That is far more prevalent. And I think if we just bring some awareness to it, we could easily shift the pendulum to let that go and die out, and be more into the nurturing phase of somebody's light. When you see a twinkle in somebody's eye, when you see a little bit of a gift, when you see a little bit of a light, throw gasoline on it, bring it up, acknowledge it, empower it, encourage it, be an advocate for it in them. That's what I would like to see. That's what I'm calling in for us. That's what I'm calling in for us. All right. There's this other thing, this other false notion, this thing that I think men actually should be very offended by. If I was a man, I'd probably be offended by it. And it goes along with the pricing yourself out of the market. And it is pricing yourself out of the market. What's the underlying current of that? The underlying current of that is the male ego is so fragile. Men are so infantile that you doing what you feel like doing, what feels good to you, that puts you in your power, that puts you in your gift, that puts you in your talent, that makes you happy, by you doing that, it puts them down. That's how fragile the ego is. And honestly, that's offensive. That's offensive. And I'm actually quite tired of people acting like men are not who built like almost everything. Men are not simple. Why do we have this narrative that men are simple, or that they're incapable, or that they have fragile egos, or fragile anything? Tired of that narrative. Tired of that narrative. You know what I mean? It is offensive to say that by you elevating yourself, that you are pricing yourself out of the market because of the fragility of the male ego or intellect. I don't think that's, I think that's, who came up with this narrative? If I was a man, I'd be like, y'all need to cut that out. And let's acknowledge men for who they are. When I went on my road trip, I have a vlog when we went on my road trip with my really good friend, my bestie, and we went west. It was like a pilgrimage, and we went west, and we were driving from San Francisco. I flew from where I'm at now to San Francisco. From San Francisco to LA, 11 hours along the Pacific coast, the Pacific Highway. From LA to the Grand Canyon in Arizona, that was probably another 8 hours. From the Grand Canyon to Santa Fe, to Albuquerque, and then Santa Fe, New Mexico, that was probably another 7 or 8 hours. Who did I see on the run as on the way, pushing products through this country like the blood of this country? Men on the road, truck drivers on the road, pushing, bringing us everything that we buy, everything that we need. Construction workers, the backbone of society. Let's stop taking them lightly and talking foolishness about, if you elevate yourself, you're going to price yourself out of the market because the fragile male ego and intellect. There's nothing fragile about them. Stop pushing that false narrative. Now, being able to balance your femininity with your power. Now, they might be a little issue right there. That might be the real issue. But in terms of just power in general, that's not what that's not what pricing, that's not what the problem is. You know what I mean? And so, but as I said, as it relates to feminine women and their power, the repercussions of that when it comes from the unhealthy male side, it's shrink yourself because you're going to price yourself out of the market. No one's going to love you. No one's ever going to love you. You have too much standard. You have too much this, you have too much that, too much power, too much certainty, too much grace, too much attraction. Too much. Definitely repercussions of standing in your feminine power. Yeah. Society. Okay. So we talked about what we mean by repercussions, what we mean by feminine power, both the sexual, attractive side of it, and also just the clear certainty, fruitful side of it, direct, clear, focused side as well. We talked about those two things. And then we talked about what the repercussions are from the unhealthy feminine female side and what the repercussions are from the unhealthy masculine side. So now let's talk about society in general. Y'all remember, how, when we, back in high school, civics or, whatever historical references, maybe it comes from a movie or something like that, how they would always talk about how they burn witches at the stake. Like if some woman was seen to have some magical power, they would burn down her house or burn her at the stake or something like that. Societally, in society, they always used to talk about that, like what they used to do back in the 17 somethings or the 18 somethings or the 16 somethings. You notice that? Well, there's this thought, this kind of conversation that happens around that, and it's called the witch wound, that a lot of women have what's called historically in their DNA or in their collective memory, this witch wound, which is this idea that if you are seen by society as too powerful, too seductive, too in command, too in control, too wise, too knowledgeable, the dominion of power, owning too much, that you were a threat and that you were a witch and that you were doing something unnatural and that you were possessed by the devil and you should be burned at the stake. So not only are there repercussions to feminine power from the unhealthy feminine side and the unhealthy masculine side, collectively, societally, there is this historical reference about this witch wound or burning witches at the stake that permeates everything that we do. So I say this to say two things. If you are ever a woman and you're trying to step into your power, and for some reason you cannot figure out, like, dang, why can't I get the confidence to do this? It is not necessarily only your own issue. There is a whole layers on layers on layers on layers on potential reasons why stepping into your power, standing into your power as a woman is difficult to do in a society that actively insists that you shrink yourself and that you are undesirable if you don't. In fact, worse than being undesirable, it's actually dangerous. Dangerous. They've made it historically dangerous to be a woman in her power and visible in this world, because they pretty much low-key want to burn you at the stake. Let me tell you a kind of modern day perspective on this witch wound or this burning at the stake thing that I saw when I was a kid. Never put two and two together, but now that I'm grown, fully cooked, juicy. Now that I'm grown, I seen a modern day witch hunt, and it is Princess Diana. Now, Princess Diana came into the royal family. She was of noble blood in her own right. She came into the royal family. She married a man at like 19 or 21 or some very young, kind of silly age. And didn't fit in, didn't get the right training, whatever the issues were, but became extremely popular. She became extremely popular with the people of Britain and the world. She ended up commanding attention. She ended up commanding a lot of power. She even did an interview one time with, what is the man named Martin Bashar. He's kind of a little bit sensational. The yellow journalism sensationalized news stories that, basically borderline tabloid. TMZ. Well, she did an interview with Martin Bashar, and she basically talked about like powerful women in history and how people are so frightened of them. They're so frightened of them. Where does she get her power? Who does she think she is? What is she gonna do with it? She's a witch. And so obviously Princess Diana didn't throw out the witch word. That's my word. But she basically said there's this feeling of impropriety. This feeling of it's unnatural for you to have that much power and that much attention and that much command and that much dominion. You know what I mean? Except for it being bestowed upon you, like in the Queen's case. But, or your father giving it to you, or your husband giving it to you. By this time, the woman would have been divorced King Charles, Prince Charles at the time. By this time, she'd been divorced him. She's a divorcee, single mother of two, and commanding power in Britain and the globe. And gave an interview talking about how people are livid behind the scenes that she has so much power. And they're frightened for this woman to have this much power because they don't know where she got it, what she gonna do with it. It's unnatural. Low key, it was the same old witch hunt story that we've been hearing about. Okay. So what ultimately happened to Princess Diana? Well, we all know that she met an untimely demise, 36 years old, being chased, run down by the paparazzi in Paris with her new man, this brown ting, Dodi, what Dodi last name is? Al-Fayyad, something like that. The Herod's, a Herod's, I want to say benefactor, but, someone who's in that bloodline from Herod's, the big expensive department store in London. She was dating him, brown man, and, that already was an issue. And they run her down, and she ultimately got in a car accident and died. So to me, as an adult, when I look back at that story, I can see that it's essentially a modern day witch hunt. It was essentially making an example of a woman being empowered and the repercussions of her standing in her power. And so anybody who watched that, whether they got it outright and it was clear to them, or whether it just triggered that witch wound on the subconscious, it was triggering and reinforcing the societal construct, the societal conditioning that a woman should stay in her place, that she should shrink herself. Who does she think she is? Who does she think she is? Burn her at the stake, throw her out to the wolves. Since she's so powerful, since she thinks she's so powerful. Does anybody else see those undercurrents in that story, in that situation? Hence what we're talking about tonight, the repercussions of feminine power. Not only are they in your head as a woman trying to step into your power, but they're pretty clear in society. And I feel like the Princess Diana story is one of our more modern day versions of that witch hunt, of a woman being empowered and ultimately meeting her demise because of the intolerance of feminine power. Yeah. Clink, 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 clink. Cheers. Here's the deal. I see y'all real quiet in here. I see y'all watching, but you're quiet tonight. But that's okay. That's okay. We still learn from the collective wisdom of the It's Counts community, whether you're watching live and chiming in the chat, or if you're a part of our replay gang and watching on a replay. We enjoy the interaction in any event. But I'm feeling pretty good about tonight's topic because it's definitely something that I've been personally working on. And when I feel like when I'm personally working on something within my own self, when I'm doing my own inner work, if it doesn't hit this week, I feel like it might hit next week or 2 weeks or a month or a year or 10 years from now. But it's definitely going to be something that hits with other people as well. So I'm happy to talk about it tonight. We're talking about the repercussions of feminine power. Okay. Being singled out, being left out to dry, being left out to pasture, being left to fend for yourself because you won't shrink yourself to make others feel comfortable with your femininity, with your intellect, with your ability to create, with your ability to align, with your ability to command, with your ability to be certain, be confident, be clear, be focused. Being singled out of society, whether it's your female groups or being seen as undesirable by your male groups, a very real risk as it relates to stepping into your feminine power. I feel like we've been spending, we already at a little less than it. We're only about 53 minutes in. I feel like we've been spending a lot of time on talking about, the title is The Repercussions. We've been talking a lot about, what's the issues, the tough parts, the hard part of trying to step into your power. Can we, and this is kind of a rhetorical question here, can we sing 333 on the clock? Can we find a way to encourage ourselves to still step out and still be confident and secure in our own power, in our own personal power? I thought about that a little bit before I came on live, and the thing that came to me was standing in your power. Standing in your power. I feel like it's a little bit of a daily practice. I feel like I need to might add that to my little affirmation sheet. So every morning when I wake up, meditate, journal, affirmations. So my little chants or my little affirmations are things that I want to repeat to myself, that I want to encode, things that I want to, be embodied in. I might have to add that. as an affirmation, something about personal power, standing in power, personal power, standing in my power, not being afraid of my own power, not being afraid of my own destiny, not letting other people's neediness or fear or judgment erode my certainty or erode my authority or erode my alignment. Not letting other people's, not letting your mothers, not letting your fathers, not letting your teachers, not letting your friends, not letting your pastors, not letting your boyfriend, not letting your girlfriend, not letting your grandmama's neediness, fearfulness, doubt erode your certainty. In fact, your attractiveness, your ability to actually get what you want, your ability to be this powerful being, this self-assured person, is rooted in your ability to hold your space, hold your certainty, hold your alignment, hold your belief in yourself, in your desires, in what you want, in what you know for sure about your gifts and your talents and what brings you joy and what brings you happiness, that what makes your heart skip a beat. Your ability to hold that space is what makes you attractive and what actually brings what you want to you. So you can't afford to let these people, regardless of who they are, erode that attractiveness, erode your certainty or your clarity or your focus or your power. Trick is always to stay aligned, always to stay aligned, to stay clear, to stay certain, to stay certain, to stay certain, and to talk yourself back into that certainty as many times as it takes. That's why when I say morning affirmations, as many times as it takes. Sometimes people used to come over my house and I would have affirmations and notes to myself written on my bathroom mirror. They would think I was a mad scientist in that biatch. Just things I want myself to know and to see every day. Talking myself back into alignment, talking myself back into certainty, talking myself back into clarity, talking myself back into my power, standing in my power, regardless of them people, regardless of what them people want to say. Written on my bathroom mirror. Now I journal it. I do have some sticky notes and some things pasted up around my house. I do. Bathroom mirror is clear, clean. Very proud of myself of that. Don't got to write it on the bathroom mirror anymore. Now I commit it to memory and I put it in the journal. But whatever you have to do to stand in your power, to talk yourself back into your power and your certainty, is what you have to do if you want this life. If you want that powerful life, if you want that queendom or that kingdom, if you want to run your own show, if you want to be the master of your fate, captain of your own soul, you're going to have to figure out how to stand in that power. And not let scary ass people scare you out of your birthright. So, I have another note here. I don't know if it's going to make sense at this juncture, but I'll still share it. It says, my alignment is not about soothing them. Their neediness has no power as long as I don't let them take me off my game. As long as I don't let them take me off my game. Their neediness, their judgment, their worry, their fear, their spite. Because enough of them spite we, enough of them bad mind we. Enough of them bad mind we. Enough of them spite we. But nothing they can do can knock you off your game. You are the only one who can raise your own veil, reveal your own, show your own hand, show your own card. No man, no man can knock you off your game. You have to knock yourself off your game. Talk yourself back up into your power if that is the life you want to live. Now, if you don't reach there yet, who's to say you don't reach there next year or 2 years or 10 years from now? Who's to say? But if you are watching this video, it's probably highly likely, almost doggone near certain, especially this late in the video, 1 hour in, that you are coming into your power, or you have the intent, you are intended to come into your power, and that you are figuring out how to be confident in that. To be confident in that. And one of the main things you have to know is that as somebody who's come into their power, a powerful person, command that. Command that. Nobody can knock you off that. You have to knock yourself off. So again, you can't let their neediness or their fear or their doubt or their judgment or their spite is not more powerful than your certainty. None of that is more powerful than your certainty. I do these videos so you know you're not out here alone in this crazy living, loving, dating, ascending, leveling up world. If this is your first time here, I'd love to have you subscribe. Hit that notification button. And if you are an oldie but a goodie, good looking out. Around these parts, we learn from the collective wisdom of the It's Kells community. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you thought about this topic and leave your tips of how to stand in your feminine power. And low-key men, drop some how to stand in your masculine power in the chat too. We want to talk about, in the comments too, we want to talk about that too. Y'all know I had some examples of some men in the talk that we just did. So just drop that in there too. Drop that in there too. With that being said, since y'all want to be all quiet tonight, I'll let that marinate. I'll let that marinate. All right. This was week 38 of our Friday night kickbacks, on our way to week 52. Consistency. Consistent. All right. With that being said, good night, guys.